Okay, so I know I totally know who you are, but I'm going to put you on the spot. One thing that I love what you do before anything is I love the way you introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course.
Can you introduce yourself in your,
Yeah. Yad'e, she'eya Emma Robbins, Yanishia, Ilagana Slantanete, Nishlet, Hashkan Hadzoche, Bashishchi, Slantanete, Dashichi, Ado, Nakaidre, Dashinale, Akut Ego, Dene, Astana Nishlet.
love it. And what did you say?
So I, like any Navajo, when we introduce ourselves, when we're meeting for the first time, we name our 4 clans. And so my first clan is Star People, as my mom is Jewish, so the Star of David. What up? And then my second clan is yucca fruit strung out on a line. My third clan is also Star People. And then my fourth clan translates to Mexican people.
Okay.
Even though I'm not Mexican myself. It's like, you know how language evolves? It means like people who walk up from the south.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so in terms of like your clan, that's established by your parents?
Yeah. So Navajo culture is matrilineal. We are matriarchal, so I'm bossy as hell, especially as the oldest daughter.
Same. Yeah.
That's how we like them.
Right.
So yeah, it's your mom, dad, and then maternal grandfather, then paternal.
Ah, nice. I never asked you that before, but I love every single time you introduce yourself. And I don't think I've ever asked you what it was that you were saying, so I'm glad that I got to.
Well, I'll say when you go to an event with a lot of Navajos, all the other natives will complain because we always introduce ourselves.
Okay.
But you also add in, this is where I'm from, this is who my parents are by name. Literally every other Navajo will be like.
Well, to me, it sounds beautiful. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so I know I was first introduced to you several years ago, or just who you were several years ago because of the U.S. Water Alliance and Dig Deep Closing the Water Access Gap report that they put out.
Yeah.
And when that came out, that's what really told the story of the 2.2 million people in this country who lack access to clean water and sanitation. And this has been several years ago that report came out. And I think I had been in the industry for 12 years and I had never heard that before.
Really?
Yeah, never heard that before. I mean, I'd heard about the millions of people around the world who lack access, but it always seemed like that was something that was happening not in the US.
Yeah.
And so to find out that 6 hours south of here in Texas to the Colonias, it's happening, the Valley in California, Navajo Nation, the fact that if you're indigenous, you're 19 times more likely to face that. Like in some ways that has kept me up at night because of that. And really that nobody knows about it, but you're from Navajo Nation and that is your story. So tell me, like, that's in a report, but what was life like that for you growing up?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know about lack of clean running water within the United States and sovereign nations within U.S. territories. And it is something that's so important to spread the message. Growing up on the reservation, or I'll say res, as you know, growing up on the res, it was just a super common thing. We didn't have clean running water at my grandparents' house. Most of my relatives, no flush toilet. But then also there's no electricity. Yeah. And nowadays there's no internet. I remember also no one had phones. So if you had a phone, it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
But there are also secondary things that contribute to lack of clean running water. Very rural areas, but roads that aren't maintained. So a lot of times equipment can't come in. And it's a huge issue because obviously when you don't have clean running water, you're extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I always grew up with thinking that it was just something that was super common. But, being a mixed Navajo, I grew up with feet in 2 different worlds. Even though I was on the res in the summer when I would go visit my mom's family in Chicago, it was just like a whole contrast.
Yeah.
And when I got older, I realized that it was really messed up. I'm from an area on the reservation, which has some of the highest rates of contamination of water with abandoned uranium mines. And so when I was 14, my grandmother passed of stomach cancer from uranium in the water. And that played a really big impact on my life in terms of understanding that issue. And my story is not unique.
Yeah.
A lot of people have lost family or are sick themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk a little bit more about the work you're doing now, but I know you came from leading the Navajo Water Project through Dig Deep on Navajo Nation. I also know that you're an amazing artist. So kind of talk about like those two worlds and how they come together for you and why art can be such an important way to talk about that stuff with people.
Definitely, I think a lot of people are visual learners. And so,
Myself included.
exactly, totally the same. And I think we're also, as Native peoples, storytellers. It's not
Yes.
always just writing out data.
Yeah.
Although data in all forms is super important. But when we can create art, we're able to educate people in more accessible ways. I think being Navajo means that we are part of the earth, so we're part of water, and that's our duty. We're part of our culture to protect that. We're also artists, and art is in our bones and our blood. And so I think we really can't take that away from who we are. There's, in most things in our culture, there's not like a hard definition of this is this and that's that, and things are so black and white. But also when we're building these projects or when we're coming together as communities to care for one another on the res, we have to incorporate both of those things because it is much more inviting. It's a way to tap into people's interests. And I think a lot of times having a background in the art world, people assume that there is that hard definition or that hard line. In my own art practice, most of the work that I make is about treaties.
Yeah.
Water and land are the number one things in treaties. And there's that big loss of those things, but there's also a big loss of culture. And so my goal is to educate people about that and encourage them to take a step further and look things up online, learn about their treaties, whose land they're on. So
yeah, there's a really good app to do that, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but anywhere you are, you can like put where you're at and it will show you the different nations that are from there.
Native land. They also have an amazing Instagram that spreads a lot of information.
That's the app, Native Land.
Mm-hmm, yeah. The app,
yeah. I don't know if you remember how, well, first of all, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
So well-meaning people, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
What is like the biggest way well-meaning people have, like, what's the best way to mess up an opportunity to be helpful with the water access issue that they may think they're being helpful, but they're not, like in your experience of working on that issue?
Very good cue. And take a drink for that one, right? No, let's see. Okay, so yeah, really great people have really great intentions, but they're missing really big things like actually listening to the community. Projects should be designed with communities. There should be a really big element of collaboration. There are so many people who work for governments, whether it's federal, tribal, state, county, that want to implement these projects, but they're forgetting that oftentimes you need to build time and money into doing actual research and embedding yourself in the community.
Yeah.
And showing that there's going to be an O&M or an operation and maintenance plan afterwards.
Yeah.
And that they're not just going to leave you with a failing project. Not every piece of technology, whether those are hydro panels or septic systems, is appropriate for every community. Yeah. So
it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation.
You can't copy and paste that.
Yeah.
So it's about listening to people. And I think also there's this assumption that collaboration isn't at the same level of designing things. I have told you before, I have so many enemies who are engineers because I've been told I have more knowledge than you and I'm going to design this project, but it's like, bro, get in there and mix with the people.
Yeah, you can't come in there like that.
No.
So I don't know if you remember talking about the way, because you were the opening keynote at Catalyst in Portland, and fun. You had, you said something about what happens when women are engaged in the work. Do you remember how you phrased it?
I don't, but women get shit done.
It was that.
Okay, it was that.
When women are involved, shit gets done. Is
It's
basically
real.
what you said. And that's the work that you're doing now. You are
Yeah.
in the women, femme environment space. So kind of talk about that, like why making that shift was important to you.
Yeah, so I've been in my position now at Planet Women for 5 months, and it's so cool to work with like other women. And that was my favorite part of my job, working in water and sanitation and hygiene for so long, was collaborating with other women, specifically other Navajo women and other Indigenous women and femmes. And so, as I mentioned before, we're a matriarchal society, and I've always grown up knowing that we need to lead and care for our communities. And so that's been an amazing shift, doing that like every day, all day.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do is building projects, working specifically with women, femme, and non-binary folks, but also making sure that we're setting an example for other people to do the same thing. And not like we're holier than thou, just like, let's talk about it. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now is rooted in conservation. There's still the human rights element. But again, it's kind of getting back to that like white male engineering where you're like, bro, slow your roll, listen to the women in your community and let them do the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that because we talked about women and about some of the hurdles that we can face in an industry that is not dominated by people who look like us.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I love about you is your authenticity. Like just from when you started to where you are today as the managing director for a nonprofit, like you are always yourself, no matter if a camera's on, a camera's off, if you're on a panel, if you're in the audience, whatever it is, you're always yourself. But I think I've heard you talk about it in a way of it's just how far the volume is turned up on that.
Yeah.
So in a space where there's not a lot of us, especially Indigenous people of color, women of color, how do you do that? How do you have the courage to lean in and still be like authentic and not say, oh, I'm going to code switch or I'm going to put on a mask for who's in this room?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have to do that sometimes, right? Like donors, I'm like, of course, like let me have all the support to make our projects happen.
Yeah.
Which is also something that I have to work on is like knowing, okay, I'm going into this room with government entities, not going to cuss or will wear something that's not see-through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like for real things like that. But I feel like the number one thing for me right now is growing up in such a poor area and knowing that there are so many people who don't have opportunities to speak up and to even step in to help their communities, collaborating with them. That's something that I know is like a deep privilege.
Yeah.
But also I remind myself that my aunties and my grandmother and other women in my life weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
And I personally, as someone in their 30s in 2023, don't want to be sitting down and not doing anything. Like as a woman of color, as a mixed Navajo, I want to be able to stand up and be like, bro, listen to me.
Yeah.
It's not about like demanding attention, but it's like, I'm literally asking for the same things that somebody else should have. A white person living in Beverly Hills, we should all have clean running water.
Yeah.
We don't need green grasses. That's a waste of water. But we need clean, fresh drinking water and a toilet that works.
Yeah. So for somebody maybe a few years back in their journey, maybe someone just starting, what would be like a word of wisdom you would give to them to not sacrifice that authenticity? Because I feel like at the end of the day, I'm going through a lot of transitions in my own, like I'm sunsetting my company. I've hired a replacement for the lab. But like Rogue is very much my identity. So it almost feels like, but the biggest lesson that I've learned in that is people thought we created great content or people were happy with the deliverables that we sent to them. But ultimately it was my personality, or is because people knew that it was like genuine, or she gives a shit for real.
Yeah.
But that courage to hold on to that authenticity came with time.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you have like a similar experience of being kind of young and just starting out? And do you have like a pivot point of where you're like, I'm not sacrificing this shit for anybody?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say that's what I love about you, because even the first time that we met, I feel like it was outside of an elevator in person since, we met or talked years before, and then through email, and just sort of this evolution. And I think it was really cool to have that. And I just immediately click with other people who are working in the way that we do. Because I think for me, the moment was coming from the gallery world, coming from the art world, and needing to be a lot more meek and more quiet and uplifting others.
Yeah.
But when it was like financial, making sure that artists could get their work sold, making sure that the gallerist was making money. When I went to the wash world and I was working on the reservation and I saw outside entities, again, people with amazing intentions, come in and still talk down to people and have this attitude of, I'm doing this for you, so you should be grateful.
Yeah.
There was a moment where I wouldn't see other people speaking up, and I'm like, bro, first of all, let's not have your white saviorism right now, because this isn't doing anything except benefiting you. You're leaving people behind. And so I really do think moving into the water world was that moment for me to pivot. And yeah, like you said, not a lot of people look like us in this field. And so looking around the room at conferences like we talked about before, US Water Alliance, whatnot, there is a huge shift, and I want to be a part of that shift. But I do remember being at that early stage where I felt really scared. And I think, like, very specific to the Navajo Water Project and clean water access projects, I felt really empowered when I educated myself either about, standards of drinking water or policy with the Colorado River, but specifically going to Lowe's and spending a lot of time in the fitting section. So that way, when these same people came and were like, oh, she doesn't understand, or you don't know what, a shark bite fitting is, it's like, no, that is male to female. Yes. So I do remember that, literally, like in mid-city in California at a Lowe's, sitting with Daniel as he explained the PVC pipes to me.
Yeah. Having those people like help you know the language. And I think like having that like camaraderie, working together, for me, it was betting on myself. That was very empowering, but also having somebody to like on the journey with you.
Yeah.
So, because you're going to have your highs and lows. And so it's nice to have somebody, a community
100%.
that can like drag you sometimes through those lows. But you brought up One Water Summit. One of the things we were talking about there is I dropped an F-bomb in a room full of people because I am really passionate about how I think the way that we silo ourselves in this industry is detrimental to the work. And the thing that I really love and appreciate about Indigenous culture is magician wizards at understanding the interconnectedness of everything. And just the way that you've talked about it, like you're coming from a different mindset about all of these things than the typical person in the industry is coming in. So just, can you kind of speak to that? And like, are there ways that I need more people to learn more about that interconnectedness mindset, because I think that that's what we need.
I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of the way that I approach things is with traditional culture and the way that I was raised, but also growing up on the res. I mean, that's like the hood of the hood, and not separating myself from that. Like not in Navajo culture, but on the reservation, on my own reservation. Obviously, I can't speak for every res. We call people who are kind of like from the country or are super res Johnny. And sometimes it's like kind of looking down on people. Sometimes it's sort of humorous. I am a number one John. Like, I am here. I don't care. I don't want to separate who I am in terms of how I grew up.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of culture when we talked about interconnectedness, or when we think about that, it's connecting with people, or five-finger beings, as we call them, in Navajo culture, through humor or through caring for one another.
Yeah.
That's why when we started out talking and I introduced myself in Navajo, the reason why we do that is because we're establishing ke, or kinship.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way you might say, oh, I'm also Hashkan Hansoche, which means that we're sisters.
Okay.
And even if you're not related, it's a way to be like, oh, well, you're from this place, or we have this interest.
There's
and
still a connection.
Exactly. Like just now there's that connection.
Yeah.
In terms of land and air and water, I don't know, like I guess a specific example I can give is I was recently in the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River, and I was with a lot of non-Native people, and I saw this sort of light bulb go on in people's minds where they were like, oh my God, I just feel like we have to save this. This is so important. And I felt bad because I personally wasn't having that moment.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, it's because
I'm always in that moment.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing is we, in terms of people who live in the US, separate everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're caring for the earth if you don't use straws or something, you know, and it's like, no matter where we're from, we're all indigenous to one place. And so we need to remember that we are children of the earth and that we do need to care for our mother.
Yeah. I just realized as you were talking about that asking you to explain what that's like is probably, it's so ingrained in who you are that's probably like asking you to explain how you know how to breathe. And and I mean, it's just, it's in there. It's in your bones. And so I get it. I wish that there was a way that we can extract that and just have more people learn that. And maybe it is by actually getting your ass up and going and getting in nature, or getting your ass up and going and having a conversation with somebody who is different than yourself.
Exactly.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like if we don't start to, I know that by making everything interconnected, we add a layer of complexity in the solutions that we need to come up with. But I feel like we've just tried to black and white things for so long, and that life is just so much more gray. I don't know. I just realized that as you're like trying to explain to me interconnectedness to you, and so.
No, I mean, I think that's the thing though, is how we operate. Like I said, like Keh being such an important element of Navajo culture. To this day, like I'm very close to my dad. He's played a huge part in the work that I do, in the supporting myself, but also my other sisters. And it is something that he constantly has to remind me. I will have moments in my professional life where I'm like, oh, this person, they're pissing me off. And my dad will literally be like, remember, they're your sister by clan. And I'm like, yes, the interconnectedness is there. And sort of to get back to what you said earlier, people with good intentions don't always do it right, but the good intentions are there. So how about we have a conversation about how they're connected to the communities or to the water source? And so I do think it's something that, yes, I grew up with, yes, it's ingrained in who I am, but I still have to remind myself of it, just like everybody else.
Well, it's like human nature. There's a lot of it that's human nature. And so I feel like there is some trial and error that comes into it. And so I guess I would hope to encourage people to be comfortable with fucking it up.
Yes,
I mean,
all
like,
levels.
on all levels. Like you learn so much when you fail. So just, I mean, say, I may totally mess this up, but this is, I'm going to try. And I think people, it's endearing when somebody tries and maybe they fall flat. But I think we're so perfect. Like, I think trying to be perfect and nail it is hurting us from trying and not nailing it and learning and doing better the next time. So,
well, I think as women, especially, that is something that is ingrained in us is to reach perfection and not fuck it up.
Yeah.
And doing all these things at once, but then also doing these other things here, like caring for a family or, you know, needing to pay bills or whatnot. And so I think that is something that as women or femme-presenting people that holds us back, is this need to feel like there's perfection. There's also this pressure from society. I mean, there are lots of studies on this. When women do fuck it up, it's like everything is on you and you didn't do this right. And yes, like you said, you fell flat on your face. So there's a lot more judgment versus when men do it, it's like, oh, he's learning and he's cute for doing that. And I think those are other conversations that we need to have.
Well, just in conversations we had before, we are our worst critics to one another. We're like, oh, like it's okay to mess up. And then we crucify one another when we're doing something different than how we did it or how we knew. So yeah, I think we need to create more of a community around fucking up.
I agree with you. And I think also this mindset of needing to work 24/7 all the
whole
time,
hustle culture. Yeah.
Here for it, still doing it.
Yep.
But I think like with this mentality or, you know, this culture of discussions about shifting, you don't need to be perfect 24/7 or you don't need to work 24/7. Sometimes I'll like read memes on Instagram or see something and I'm like, that's right. Self-care. I'm empowering myself. It's a muscle that needs to be built and it's a long term. I don't just read that meme and my life changes.
Exactly.
It's like we have to work on that. And it's intergenerational trauma, it's blood memory. It's not just like, oh, I'm stressed out to be stressed out. I'm responding to trauma that might be decades ago or something that my mom went through, but it's still there and we really have to practice it. We've got to build that muscle.
Yeah. Outside of Instagram memes, what is your favorite? I mean, it could be an Instagram meme. I don't know. What's your favorite quote or word of advice you've ever gotten or heard?
Oh my God. Okay.
We're in this portion of the conversation.
I am like fully here for this, living for this. So a couple of years ago, I was speaking with my friend's husband and the next day I was going to ask for a raise. Right?
Okay.
And I was like nervous about it because I hadn't had a negotiation like this before as a younger woman. And he was like, Emma, I'm going to tell you this. And this is something I tell other people. You are Jim.
Okay.
Jim is a white guy.
Okay.
Jim thinks that the world owes him everything. Jim knows that he's going to get a raise. It's just like
asking as a formality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there are things. Jim's going to go to a restaurant, complain about something, get the manager. It's like all these things. And he's like, you have to be Jim. You are that white guy. Like you go in there and walk with the confidence of a mediocre white man and like, get your shit done, girl, get that money. And I was like, he's not wrong. And he said, this is literally the number one piece of advice, but sticks with me is put those white man balls on the table, act like you are Jim, and you will get what you want. And I got what I want.
There you go.
I mean, I think that's real is like, we're so nervous, like you said. I mean, I'll say we all are, but a lot of times women in our field are nervous. And it's like, no, you're just like Jim. You're just like everybody else. And you deserve that. Clean running water, good pay, and care for yourself and your family.
There you go. That's the new hashtag, just like Jim.
Yeah.
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 We're going to put it on a shirt. So, okay. The last thing. So Rogue has some core values. I'm going to have you scroll through these pics. These are the core values. Pick the one that speaks to you most and talk about why. All right. So
I'm like scrolling through a phone. I'm like, we just talked about balls. We just talked about memes. What is going to be on this phone?
Oh, no. It's safe. So just.
No. And I also love these graphics. Okay. Should I read them out loud?
Sure.
Okay. Stay curious. Empathetically serve. Live in gratitude. Love that turquoise. Curate connections. Be authentic. And bold is gold. So which one?
You pick the one that like speaks to you and say why. Like this is your final message to the flies on the wall right now.
I mean, obviously I'm like bold as gold.
I know. I kind of felt like that's where you were going to lean.
But I was actually going to say, I think curate connections is probably the thing that I identify the most with because again, as women working in the human rights sector, in the water world, in conservation and environmentalism, it's about bridging those connections because like we said, as five-finger beings, as humans, we are still connected to this earth. And so if there's somebody working at the EPA or someone doing policy work with water rights, how does that fit into someone who's doing human rights?
Yeah.
I also strongly believe that when we climb that ladder, we have to lift other people up with us. That is something in women and femme communities where there's a lot of interfighting, or Native communities, and it's like, but we can all climb that ladder together.
Yeah.
So I think curating connections is probably the thing that I identify with. And like we said, bridging art and bridging water projects. And, you know, most recently I started a Native arts org called the Chapter House in Los Angeles. And it was because I wanted to curate that connection to Indigenous communities, both from the res and in urban settings, but also with the human rights element. And then the element to just chill and make some art and enjoy it.
Yeah. So you just took connections to a whole new level. So all of the things, interconnectedness. So, well, thank you for coming to Texas to have a conversation. And I love that I just found out that we are star sisters in this by learning that. Yes. So let's cheers.
Or I don't know how to do like a star
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
We're like gonna start
Just
throwing
pretend
signs.
it's there,
There. So cheers. And man, I'm here for you in whatever way that you need. And I wanna hug.